Welcome back to Project 2x4 for Beginners. If you haven't seen the others in this series, I'll put a link to those in the description. Make sure you check those out. Otherwise, I got 3 new projects for you, so let's get started. For this first project, you're going to need 1 board at 24 inches, 1 at 16, and 7 at 12 inches. And if any of your pieces have any markings or any paint on them, this would be a good time to sand those off. Now let's grab the 24-inch board, and we want to put some pocket holes on both ends. But before we do that, let's look at each side. This looks pretty, and that does not. So we're going to make the ugly side the back, and that'll be the side we actually put the pocket holes in. Then place the 24-inch board with the holes facing up and grab 2 of your 12-inch boards. We want to put 1 on each end, trying to center it up. It's probably a good idea to measure this out so you know it's centered. It's also a good practice to clamp your wood down whenever you're installing the screws, otherwise it'll probably move around on you. At this point, you'll have a dog bone or a large eye. So we're going to set this to the side. We're going to bring over the rest of those 12-inch boards, which there should be 5 of them, and we'll start on them. We want to slide all these boards together because we are looking along the sides. See which ones are the straightest, and this one looks kind of wavy on the sides. Apparently it's a bad cut, and the rest of these look decent. So this one's going to be hidden, so we're going to take a pencil and do a little X on it so we don't get it mixed up with the others. Now looking at those 4 boards, we want to flip them over and see which sides are the ugly sides and which are not, because we want to definitely determine which ones look better, because those will be the top. Now take all your ugly sides and face them up, and we want to line them up along the edge so that they're flush with each other. Then take that remaining board, the one we set to the side because it's wavy, we want to center it up, making sure it is flush on one side. Now of course you'll have to do some measurements to get this just right, but we need it to be as centered as possible. Once we get it lined up, it's a good idea to then take a pencil and run along the side of each side of your board here, just to make sure it doesn't move around. That way if by chance it does, you can reline everything up and know exactly where center is. Now in this project, I'm going to use some glue, which is not something I normally do in these projects. Normally I just use screws, and I am going to use those as well. But I want the added assurance that this project won't come apart as we use it. Then line everything back up and make sure it is definitely flush on this end. I then pre-drilled some holes on the outer edge here to give it as much strength as possible, and we're putting at least 2 screws into each board. You could always put 4, but at least 2. Next, grab the 16-inch board, and we need to put pocket holes on one end. Then take that 16-inch board with the holes, and we want to line it up on the 12-inch board that we installed just a little while ago, making sure it is flush on both sides, and secure those down. And for a little added strength, I'm adding 1 screw through the front of this board into the existing board on the back. Then going back to the eye board that we made earlier, we want to measure up from the bottom 16 inches and make a mark. Then slide over our other piece, and we want to actually flip it up. Now this will actually be the front, so we're flipping it onto the front here. Then take that other board and the marks we just made on it, we want to line those up with the top of our bottom board here. Then make sure it is flush on both of these sides, and we're just going to add 1 screw to start. And by adding just that 1 screw, allow us to do some micro adjustments. So flip it up, which will be on the feet, and then we are going to kind of rock it back and forth, making sure everything sits nice and flush on all the legs. And once everything is nice and stable, make sure you have at least 2 screws going into the upper board and at least 2 screws going into the lower. And with that, we have completed a chair. Yes, it is a little bit of an unusual chair, but it is still a chair. So let's test it out. All right, let's give this a shot, and that's actually a lot more stable than I thought it was going to be. It does rock a little bit if I force it, but overall, that's a pretty good little seat. I like it. Here's the back side so you can see what I mean about, I could force it to rock, but overall, that's pretty stable. For project number 2, let's build something that can go with the chair, but also is unique in itself. For this project, you're going to need 4 boards at 14, 4 boards at 12 inches, and 4 boards at a total length of 14 inches, but on each side it is cut at 15 degrees in parallel, so they're going in the same direction, but they're 15 degrees on each end. Now take the 14-inch boards and we want to flip them over so that the best side will be facing down. And as you can tell there, that is definitely the bad side. We'll get them all lined up and even with each other. And then take one of the 12-inch boards. We want to center it up, not only side to side, but back and forth. That'll take a little bit of measuring, so let's get that done. And just like we did with the chair, I'm going to add some glue to the top of our board so that when we flip it over, it just has a better connection. And then add some screws to secure it in place. Then we're going to grab the 14-inch boards with the 15-degree ends, and we're going to line them up so it's flush on this side and this side, so right in that corner there. And it'll look something like that. Now to secure this board to this board could be a little bit difficult, so we're going to add some pocket screws right here on the inside. Now that we have the first one in place, we just need to repeat that process for the remaining 3. With the legs secured in place, we're going to take the remaining 12-inch boards and we're going to center them up on the bottom of these feet. Now you may be thinking, those aren't necessary, and they are not. But I know myself and I know my family, there's a good chance that someday we're going to put something heavy on this table, and I want to make sure they are secure. So by adding some screws in on this bottom board here, those legs should be nice and strong. And the table is now complete. There we go. It's a unique looking table that should go great with that chair. Of course, you may want to add some stain, give it a kind of a two-tone, that would make it look even better. But there you go. For project number 3, let's make something a little bit less abstract, but definitely useful for the house. For this project, you're going to need 9 boards at 36 inches, 4 boards at 21 inches, and 4 boards at 13.5 inches. First, grab the 21-inch boards, and we want to find the pretty side. For example, that one's nice and smooth, that side's a little rough, so this will be the nice side, which will be my outside. Then we want to put 2 pocket holes on one end of the board. Not both, just one end of all 4. Then grab one of your 13.5-inch boards, and we want to figure out which is the pretty side, which I think is this one. So we're going to face it down. And then we're going to take 2 of those 21-inch boards, the ones with the pocket holes. We're just going to kind of get them ready. We're then going to take 3 of the 36-inch long boards, and we're going to do a little test fit on this piece over here. So I've used a couple other boards to kind of level out the surface for us. So we're going to carefully put these in place and just see how well they fit without knocking these other boards off. I have a feeling it's going to be pretty tight, so let's see. Alright, let me get you a little bit closer and show you what I'm talking about here. With the boards in place here, I'm going to try and flush up these 2 21-inch boards on this 13.5, and this side is flush and this side sticks out just a little bit. So that's okay, we can hide that in this build. But just be forewarned that by pre-cutting all this like we just did, there's a chance it might be a little bit short on one end. And now that we know that this side is going to stick out just a little bit, we need to look at this board and the one on the other side and determine which one should be the front of our project. I think this board right here is a little bit prettier, so we'll make this the front. So in that case, we're going to flush up this side here and make the other side stick out just a little bit, because that side will be against the wall, you'll never see it. We then can secure these outer boards with some screws. And since we already have this pretty much set up, let's go ahead and flush up these 3 boards with this top board as well, because we're going to secure these down with screws going from the bottom and to the top. It's also a good idea to pre-drill each of these holes to help prevent cracking. Then we're going to repeat that same process for this opposite side, making sure that if we have any overhang like we did on that side, to have it to the back so it won't be seen. At this point, we need to pick this up and move it out of the way so we can work on the next part. Then grab 3 of your 36-inch boards, and we need to attach them together side by side. And to do that, we're going to use some pocket screws. And if we put those at about 4 inches from each end and one in the center, that should work well. Now that we have this connected in one solid piece, we need to put some more pocket holes, and these will be going towards the outside or to the front or to the back of these boards. That way we can attach them to the legs. Then we need to grab the original piece we assembled. We want to take a measuring tape and we want to measure 8 1/4 inches up from the boards that are currently there and make a mark on all 4 legs. Then take the boards we just put together side by side and we want to make sure that the pocket holes are facing up and we want the bottom of it to line up with that line. Now to do that can be a little bit difficult, so let me show you a trick. If you take a clamp that has a nice flat edge on it and you line it up with that line that we have there, clamp everything down, and you can do that in all 4 legs, and you can set your board right on top and attach it to it. Now this turns out to be one of those projects when you're using pocket screws, sometimes it's just a little too tight to get your drill down in there. And then this is one of those cases. So in those times, you need to get something like a ratchet and a 1/4 inch socket because the bit will fit right inside there. And then you can go in here and you can manually tighten everything down. I don't like doing that most of the time, but occasionally you have to. Then take this entire piece and flip it over. Now of course it's going to be heavy, so be prepared. Then take the remaining 13 1/2 inch pieces and we want to slide them right under, just like that. Then take the 36 inch long pieces and we want to slide them right there on top of those. And we want to line these up side by side just like we did before, making sure everything will fit. And once you have everything lined up and as flush as possible, clamp everything together. Well, the 13 1/2 inch boards won't get clamped, but the legs and the inner boards will. So make sure it's nice and tight so they don't move around. Once again, we got to flip this thing over. Oh boy, it's heavy. Ugh. Then take the 13 1/2 inch board and you want to flush it up on all sides as best as possible. And then you want to add 2 screws going into each leg and at least 2 screws going into each board across. Now putting screws in like this can be a little bit of a challenge, so if you have to, you may have to add an additional clamp on each board as you're screwing it in. And when you're putting in these screws, make sure you put them just below the surface. Now we have to flip this over one last time. Oh, but we don't have to be as gentle because it is fully secured. And there you go. It is done. Now if you haven't guessed already, this is a basic shoe rack. It's a custom one though, because you don't see any of the screws. Plus, the center shelf looks almost like it's floating in between the others. Now, of course, there are easier ways to do this. You could add some additional supports under here. You could have the screws coming in from the outside so they are seen, but that's totally up to you if you want to do that. I would also recommend using some kind of stain to give it some color and adding a nice top coat so that any kind of dirt won't stain your wood. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video and everything that we've made. If by chance you hadn't seen the others in this series, I'll list that in the description. Make sure you check it out. Now, if you have any comments on these projects or any suggestions to make these better, please list those down below and you'll help out a ton of other people. Otherwise, get out in your shop and have fun building.